Happy to be joined now by Laurie Henes, NC State coach. Laurie, thank you so much for joining me. How do you feel like your team did indoors cross country? It was a crazy weekend.
It was a crazy weekend. Guess to start with indoors. I think that that 5K was one of the craziest races I think most of our athletes have been in, and obviously we could have changed that. We had enough people in it that if we didn't want to run it like that, we could have done something about it. But I think it was just a very strange race, and so particularly for our athletes that had cross country left. I think it actually set it up well, realizing that they're just maybe a little bit better off on a nice, faster, sustained pace than kind of with all the pace switching going on. But we were happy with the 5, really happy with the DMR. I thought our athletes that, we took Ellie off the DMR and still scored. And I think the athletes that ran there ran really well. First experience at nationals for all of them. So I think that went well. The 3K was obviously disappointing with Ellie trying to make a move and falling, and I think she felt good, and there were other people that got taken out there, so that was tough. And then it's just kind of a quick switch. We had it all set up to we had the bus start in Fayetteville, so all the athletes that were running cross country got to Stillwater by 3 or 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and just kind of started the recovery process to get ready to go.
It's interesting with your indoor crew, especially in that 5,000, Hannah and Kelsey, they actually improved their positions when they ran cross country. What do you attribute that to?
For Kelsey particularly, I think she's a much bigger fan of cross country than she is. I obviously she's very good on the track, but she likes that hard course, hammer it out over the hills. I think for Hannah, I think that the changing of pace kind of zapped her a bit in the 5. I think she was not happy with her 5K performance, but it turns out I think that set up NCAA cross going maybe better for her than it would have had she not run the 5K.
How did you ultimately make these sorts of decisions? You guys were in an interesting position because you had a fall cross country season. You won the ACC championships, and then you had a normal-ish, as normal as it could be, indoor season. How did you decide on a week-to-week basis who ran what, who ran where, and who was competing in which season?
So we had some discussions early on, particularly with Hannah and Kelsey, who didn't get to run indoors last year. Were in Albuquerque and had to fly home and didn't get to race. So we had those discussions pretty early that we would consider both, but stay under raced other than that. So basically they both ran the standard to get in that they needed to run and sat out the ACC indoor meet, which not something, not a position we want to be in, but hopefully nothing will be like this year again. So neither one of them wanted to sit out the ACC indoor meet, but we didn't feel that it was in their best interest to run the ACC championships and 2 nationals. So that was a discussion that was had fairly early on, that we wouldn't run all 3 of those meets. And actually a discussion with, our administration stuff too. They said, if you want to focus on the national meets and take some people out of the ACC championships, that's what we did. And so I felt that they were not particularly over raced. They had 1 race at each event, and then kind of into the national meets. The DMR was kind of a later decision. We ran to get in, and then I just didn't really feel that it would take much out of athletes to run a DMR on Friday with the bus there and the recovery stuff we had in place to be able to run. So those athletes did run ACCs, and then nationals and both national meets.
When it came time to actual championship part of the season, do you think, in a way, having these seasons overlapping and just coming off of the idea of canceled seasons and people wanting to take advantage of every competitive opportunity, did it take some of the pressure off, at least for the second championship for cross country, of, hey, I just ran a national championship 2 days ago. I got a hard effort in. Let's just see what we can do there. Or did it increase and ratchet up the pressure?
I think it decreased it. I think for the athletes who did both, it was kind of, okay, we've got 1 national championship out of the way. Let's just really go after the second one. Everything has been so uncertain all year, and we've just talked so much about just taking advantage of any opportunity that we have. I don't think anyone was sure we were actually going to have both of these opportunities in the same weekend up until they were on the schedule, but lots of things have been on the schedule and not happened. So up until, pretty much the end there. And so, yeah, I think particularly with that 5K going the way it did for those two and being just, kind of something that was so uncertain, they were just like, oh, let's just go after cross country and get after it. And so I think it actually took some of the pressure off the athletes that did both.
Hmm. Looking back on it now, I know this has been bing boom, right? Like one championship, another championship, and then you're already on to outdoors. But is there anything you would have changed? Anything you would have done differently given the weird circumstances and all the constraints on your program?
No, I don't think so. I think, I mean, on race day in that 6K, we could have had some people not be maybe quite as aggressive early on as they were. But there are programs who did an amazing job being conservative and getting on the podium or finishing in that top 5. And we've done that before, and we like running that way. But I think on that course, we just felt like if we wanted an opportunity to go for it, we had to be aggressive. And
Mhm.
it didn't end well for a few of our athletes in the last 2K, but I wouldn't change that. I mean, we had athletes get themselves into the 30s past 5K, and it didn't work out for all of them. But I like to see that they went after it. They were aggressive. They believed that they could do it, and for a lot of them, it worked out well.
Mhm. The final kilometer, there was all sorts of people going, not just on your team, but you look at the results, and it's pretty rare to see that many people fall that far back. Is that the function primarily of the course, the weather, the wind? What do you attribute it to?
I think a combination of mostly the course. I think
Hmm.
probably misjudging for the people who hadn't been on there before. I mean, for us, one of our top 5 that went, that dropped a lot over the last K. We've talked about this, and Dominique Claremont was the ACC champion. She had mono and a norovirus. At one point, she was in, I think, 26th place at 3K, and I looked at it. I was looking at the scores kind of quickly, and this thought popped into my head. I said, "Oh, her place is about the number of days she's been running. It's probably not going to end well." And so, I'm just amazingly proud of her for what she was to be able to hold on to that. So she went for it. Maybe if she'd run conservatively, would she finish much higher? I don't think so. And so I do think it was mostly the course. You see that sometimes in women's races. The other thing I think you saw in the women's races, there was a lot of carnage over the last 1K, but not as many DNFs as the men's. So I think like over 10K, so maybe that happens earlier on that course, and more people actually dropped out on that side than the women. Maybe some of them managed to make it to the finish line, but um, I was surprised there weren't more DNFs on the women's side actually.
Where were you positioned during that last K? You said you're following the results, so you probably knew you guys were in front going out last K. What was it just like from the ground level to see such a challenging ending to a championship race?
Yeah, I was probably right when they came off the harder uphill, starting to go down maybe 300, 400 to go in that range. And, Kelsey and Hannah looked great, and Caitlin was holding on well. And I knew that it was going to be a real challenge for Dom to hold on there. And again, I thought she did great. It was really hard to watch as a coach. I mean, the woman we had at number 5 right there was Julia Zacco, and she had moved herself from 70th into 38th. And, I mean, her first real race in whatever it is, a year and a half, and it just didn't, she wasn't able to hold on to that. There's some things we're trying to work through with that, and it was really hard to watch as a coach because she is such a team player. She went from the 70s to the 30s, like what we talked about, moved up well, was in a great position, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, watching it was very strange to watch. It's a cross country race, so it's just mass chaos, even in its simplest form. But just the amount of people moving back and forth over the last kilometer. Is that how you anticipated that race would go, given the course?
Not really, I don't think anyone really expected that level of of what we saw in the women's race there. But we also had Savannah Shaw, who ended up our number 5, moved from whatever she gained 30 places over the last class. So like you said, there was just a ton of movement, and I think people managing their effort and yeah, obviously that course just hurts. And so being able to manage, am I in so much pain that I'm not going to be able to pretty much make it, or can I hold on here? And I think that the cues were hard to read for people on that course, especially who haven't been on that course before. I kind of asked Sarah Hopkins from Minnesota beforehand, like, hey, you know, how does this work out on this course? And she's like, it's hard to move way up, but then they did, and Michigan State did it incredibly well. So I mean, I think, yeah, it just worked out quite differently for different individuals on there, which, you know, there were people moving way up in the last 1,000 and people really struggling to hold on.
Mhm. Well, there were so many variables. Some teams got on the course this year, some teams didn't. Some teams had their conference championship like you guys did back in the fall. Other teams had their conference championship a couple days before the meet. I guess on my first point there on seeing the course, what exposure had you to the new course, and do you think that I heard Dave Smith say it's almost good sometimes when you hadn't had any experience on it and you go in fresh because maybe you're not as scarred as somebody who had run it once before. I mean, he did mention if you run it a lot of times, you can get acquainted and know all the difficult spots, but not seeing the course. I'm sure in a normal year, you would have gone out and seen it more frequently.
Yeah, we certainly had plans to do that if it were a normal year. I think obviously Dave knows it's his course too, but I think that there could be a lot of truth to that. We watched some videos, you know, we heard what other people said about it, and it, you know, I think too on the course preview day it was wetter. The course was much spongier, you know, on the day before, and so I think maybe people thought it might even be harder than it was because it kind of dried out a little better for race day. But I know that Hannah said after the first kind of loop, she said she thought, I can do that again. This is okay. You know, and yeah, maybe having been on there more than that, you might not be as positive about that. So I think certainly we would have liked to have seen it beforehand and had an opportunity to race on it, but yeah, that just wasn't the way this year was. So I think we just focused on getting as fit as we possibly could and just trying to take advantage of the opportunity of being on that course. But yeah, we prefer to see it beforehand, and I'm sure, you know, over the next couple of years we'll try to do that with the courses we haven't been on.
Mm-hmm. Still end up second place, your highest finish since 2001. If someone had told you that, I guess when everything shut down in March or even in the fall, would you have been happy with that result?
Um, yeah, if someone had told me that 6 weeks ago, I'd be thrilled with the result. Again, we didn't think we'd get to line up Dominique, and I think again just a massive team player that she is. Basically 10 days out, she said, "Let's try this. I think I can help the team." And that's a hard position for somebody who definitely wants to be top 10 and won the ACC title in the fall to say, you know I'm not going to be in the top 10, but put me in and let me see what I can do for the team. So, you know, we were thrilled with what she was able to do. We had some other people that missed quite a bit of time coming into this. So, yeah, if you'd have told me that, you know, even 6 weeks ago, I would have been thrilled. But then with 1,000 to go, obviously that feeling is not the same because in the position that you feel, you know, afterwards, not quite as thrilled. But I think in retrospect, with a couple days looking back, I think this group is not satisfied, but they're certainly happy to be back there, to be in second and have everyone back with an opportunity to really go after this next fall too.
Mhm. Yeah, what was the team's immediate reaction? Because they're not looking at the live scores. There's no timeouts. They don't understand, oh, we were ahead and then they're behind. But what was their immediate reaction at the finish line?
Well, we were you know, the one of the benefits to fewer spectators is your athletes can hear you a little bit more.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
you know, so they did kind of know, hey, we're in it, you know. So then when they finish and like kind of you can see, and it's kind of cool with the more live updating and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, honestly, their immediate reaction was to take care of, yeah, Julia, who was in the medical tent and, you know, not doing well. So I think that was like kind of their immediate reaction. And then when they realized, like, and I think that the score, they were taking a while. So I think for a while
Mhm.
we were third. Um, and then when it popped up that we were second, I think, yeah, they, you know, again, end of the day, look at the season, finished second at nationals with everything that went on. They're happy with that. But I think it also is giving them a taste. Everyone wants to be back. Everyone wants this group together and have an opportunity to really go after it again in the fall.
Mhm. How is Julia doing?
She's okay. You know, she was fine by the next day, and I don't know if we'll race, you know, next weekend or not. We might take a little bit of time there, but it's just, yeah. I mean, something that we have to figure out. It's maybe a blood sugar thing. We don't know because you know, there's mental components to it, and for sure for a lot of people. But Julie and I have talked about it. I mean, what happens doesn't, it's happened more than once, but we've worked with nutritionists on, the blood sugar side of it, all this stuff. But it is like, she is pale, throwing up, everything she had was left out there, and all of her teammates know that. And, again, we have a deep enough program that we would, we expect someone else to pick it up when someone does have a problem. And so, like I said, someone else was able to, Savannah was able to gain those 30 places when Julie was losing them. And that's what we talk about. And, we just didn't quite make that work with everyone over the last 1,000, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something you see. I mean, you saw in the front of that race as well with Whitney Orton sliding back, and then in prior years, of course, like Jenny Simpson. One moment it's great, and then it could just turn so quickly. Was that your feeling? Like, were there any warning signs coming? I know you mentioned she made a big move in the middle of the race.
And that's her racing strategy, and Dom's, it was at Dom's at Nationals last year, and it worked out well for Dom. So yeah, what we've talked about is maybe being more, actually seems a little bit counterintuitive, but maybe being a little more aggressive earlier, so that you're not making massive jumps in the middle. Her fitness level is the same as the people that ran well. She does almost everything that they do workout wise. So I don't think it was something that was out of her range. It just maybe was a little bit much to go to gain all those places from 2K to 4K or 5K. It might be better to be more consistently aggressive, and we may try that next time.
What did you think of Caitlin's weekend? She runs in the DMR, gets some experience there, and then ends up as the top freshman in the cross country championships.
I thought it was amazing. I really did. I think she's handled things extremely well. She missed a lot of time, almost all of the summer. She had a knee procedure done in June, and I think I said she planned to have it done in March, and then everything shut down, and so able to do it until June. So didn't run it all over the summer and a good portion of the fall. And so I think same thing, really, we made that decision to race her at the JDL meet, I guess, in the middle of February, probably the week before. We had just kind of been going very slowly with moving her workout groups, and things just kind of came around there late. And she loves relays and she loves cross country. So it was a perfect situation, I think, in a weekend to say, hey, let's go run a relay with your team and be All-American, and then let's try to be All-American and help the team in cross country. She's an amazing teammate, and I know she wanted to be a part of both of those things. And so I thought it was pretty cool that she got, after everything that's gone on in the last 8 months, that she got an opportunity to do those things.
Mm-hmm. Did it surprise you that she was aggressive early on and with that front pack?
It surprised me how aggressive our whole front pack was, but the plan was for her to basically run with Hannah and Kelsey. That's what she's been doing in practice. But in our pre-race meeting, she did say, do you think I'm okay with this? Because I feel like I'm working a little harder than they are still in workouts. And I said, and I said, yeah. And so, and she's just so tough that she was able, I mean, the last 1,000 hurt. It hurt for everyone, but she hung on very well. And so, yeah, I was surprised that they found themselves kind of way in that lead group right away, but not that the three of them were running together. That was what they had pretty much planned to do.
Mm-hmm. And you brought in a strong recruiting class, not just Caitlin. There's a bunch of other big name freshmen there. Are we going to probably see them outdoors again? I know you mentioned you're trying to bring the whole group back from cross, but you have some other people that I'm sure can work into your top 7 as well.
Yeah, some of them. And, again, I think coming off of the second place finish too, the discussion with a lot of them is to make sure, certainly we want to have an outdoor season and be able to be ready to race, but the discussion is kind of to make sure that people have a nice uninterrupted block of training into next fall too. So we'll do what what is necessary to make sure that the people in that class and that didn't line up Monday have that opportunity, because again, everyone wants to come back, and but that's the plan right now. And so we want to have everyone be able to have that kind of block of uninterrupted training into the fall too.
Did it surprise you that everybody wanted to come back?
Not really, I mean, I don't think that there's much better, I've run college professionally, all these things. There's not much better than being on a podium with a team at NCAA cross country. I think that's one of the best feelings in this sport. And so, well, I think because they have the opportunity to do that, it's not particularly surprising. I mean, some people are going to have to be creative about exactly what the academic situation, what they want to do. Do they want a full master's degree? Do they want, what are they working towards academically? Because you get to a point where, well, shoot, I mean, for us, Kelsey Camille's going to have her undergrad degree done in December next year in 2.5 years. I mean, it's just, we have really good students. And it's kind of like, okay, so what do we do academically to take advantage of this extra eligibility that we may have available?
She's going to have a PhD by the time it's all done.
Maybe, I don't know. She wants to be a vet, but you can't really start vet school in the middle of running. So,
Gotcha. Well, yeah. Can you explain more about the struggles there? It's great to say, hey, I want to come back and run. I had this extra year. Last year it didn't count, but it's more complicated than that, correct?
it is. The NCAA, whether you can exempt aid or not exempt aid, I think people are trying to figure out all what those rules are exactly going to be. They know that you can for cross country and indoor, but perhaps not if the athlete runs outdoors. So coaches and teams have that to figure out, and then the athletes have to figure out, if their life plan was, okay, I'm going to be done in 4 or maybe 5, and now I have this extra eligibility. Do I, is this something I want to do, or do I want to move on? I'm sure there will be plenty of seniors in the NCAA that move on, and that it makes sense for them to do so. But I think for us, I think one of the reasons I know one of the big reasons Hannah Steelman transferred is, she wanted to be a part of a team, and this year hasn't been, the same as a normal year. And so I think she would like another opportunity to have a full year of outdoor and cross, and with the team that she transferred to be a part of training with. And I think same thing for Dom. I think she really figured things out during this time and won an ACC title, and so she wants another opportunity at that, since she didn't get to be 100% at this national championships. But I think, it's definitely a very individual situation, and different for different teams. And we're fortunate to have the ability to have everyone come back if we want to. And so, we definitely want these seniors back, and they want to come back. And so I know that will be it's a tough call for some people, for sure. And then if you get to a high enough level, do you just want to go pro and start that portion of your career, as opposed to the collegiate one? So definitely different decisions for different people, and we just kind of work through it individually, and try to support each individual here as best we can, and help them make the best decision for them and the program.
When things were shut down, a lot of athletes and coaches were talking about gratitude, and when sports return, I want to relish every opportunity to compete. Do you still have that feeling? Has that dissipated at all for your athletes? Are they still carrying that mantra with them?
Well, I think it's interesting. Those were 2 of our bigger mantras before this happened. So I don't think that will change for us. I mean, I think that we have always kind of been of the mindset that when you practice gratitude, it makes a big difference. If you can we talk about being grateful to be at practice with your teammates and have this opportunity. And every national meet, every ACC meet, opportunity is a big word in the room for us at our team meetings. I mean, there's no guarantee of success at any of this, but we always tell athletes, when you're healthy and the opportunity to compete at this level, like, you've got to be grateful for that. I mean, that, like, for instance, for both Dom and Caitlin, that was a huge part of our individual meetings. Like, wow. For Dom 6 weeks ago, didn't think there would be any opportunity to do that. For Caitlin, we talked about sitting there in the fall and thinking, like, did we ever think we'd be here at both national meets, with being All-American twice and having this opportunity? So we preach that a lot. I think it serves people well later in life after running too, to be grateful for what you have, and for when you get an opportunity to be successful, to take advantage of that opportunity. So it doesn't change much for us, but it was great that was our setup going into this, because I think people already had that mindset. They were, we had athletes able to actually train together a bit in Colorado over the summer, but 2 years ago they had one house in Flagstaff with 20 people, right? Obviously can't do that. They
Right.
went out super resourceful to get like 5 different houses, so that they would only have 4 people in a house, but still be able to meet for some of the runs to keep the team together. And I just think, particularly some of our older athletes did an amazing job of being able to keep everyone together and keeping that bond there in a really tough situation.
And with someone like Caitlin, as you mentioned, surgery in June, if there were a fall championships, it would be a completely different freshman year for her entirely
Right.
versus,
There would have,
yeah.
there would have been no opportunity to run an NCAA cross championship in in November for her. So
Mhm. One last question. But now, with bringing the whole group back, with the fact that you guys got second and you got your program's never won a women's team title, gratitude is awesome, and I'm sure. But the goals are probably very lofty. Of like, hey, we're probably not going to be. I mean, is this true that second is not going to satisfy you guys come the fall? The goal is to win.
yeah, I mean, sure. I think we will continue. We the other thing we have a focus on is the process. Because if you just focus on the outcome, I think you can, lose sight of that. And but absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's. We sit down and have team meetings, and we're going to get through outdoors before we really recycle and talk about, next fall. But yeah, absolutely, I'm sure with everyone back, that will be the goal. You know, one of the last things, the other things we talked about in the team meeting is like oh, like being on the podium, like that makes you happy, like this is really cool, or winning an ACC title makes you happy. And I think that's true, but I think that the teams and the people that are the happiest are the ones that end up on the podium. So which comes first, really, right? Like this is a team
Mm-hmm.
that like really enjoys being together, really enjoys working hard for each other. And so honestly, we're going to keep focusing on that. And I but there are other teams doing that too. And so the outcome, I think a lot of the women's teams that are successful are in a similar situation, and only one person can win. So, we're going to keep focusing on the process and getting there, but I'm sure that will, you don't go in finishing second the year before not wanting to win. So I'm sure that will be the goal.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Laurie. Congrats on the indoor and cross country accomplishments, and best of luck in outdoor, which starts right now, I guess.
Next week. Yeah. Thank you.